So welcome everyone to our second Find Your Fire Tribe of 2022. I'm Wendy Yorching, founder of Healing Spaces Caribbean and tribe mom of the wonderful Find Your Fire Tribe. And today's session is going to be a Q&A with Dr. Laura Tiberio, our wonderful naturopathic doctor, part of our tribe. And of course, she has her own tribe. And I hope they all join together and see this video, because what she's going to share today is going to be helpful to all of us. So I want to thank those of you who have joined us live. And for those of you who are watching on Facebook, please touch #live in the comments so we know that you were there. And anybody who's watching the replay on Facebook again, please type #replay so we know who actually was there and enjoyed this video. So without any further waiting, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Laura, because she's got so much goodness to share with you and she can't wait. So Laura, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Wendy, and this beautiful Find Your Fire. I'm so grateful and happy for having me again today. And Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year. You know, for those who don't know me, my name is Dr. Tiberio, and I'd like to start off by first acknowledging that I'm hailing from beautiful British Columbia, Canada, where I would like to respectfully acknowledge the First Nations and Coast Salish peoples on whose unceded and traditional territories that I live, work, and play on. And I'd also like to acknowledge and bless and send love to everybody here in this beautiful space today, and everybody who's out there live, and for everybody watching on a recording. I just like to say thank you for joining, and I'm so excited to be here. I'm also really grateful because Wendy was so kind to ask me last month in December, to talk about self-care. And now, and who doesn't need self-care, right? We all need self-care. And it was a hard year last year, I think, for a lot of people. You know, does anyone have a hard year out there? I know I did. Is anyone having a hard start to this year? I know I am. So no, everyone's saying no. That's awesome. I love it.
I'm going to the beach every morning there, Laura. I'm good.
I know. We were just talking about that, Wendy, right? Like Wendy's getting in her peace and her joy and her hydrotherapy right there. So it's fantastic. But you know, no matter where we are in the world, and no matter what's going on for us, something that we really need to focus in always is our self-care. And of course, coming off of that from last year into this year, I'm also so grateful to Wendy for being able to share the 12 days of immunity, 12 days of immunity challenge that I do also through my immune proof course and series that I do. And also in my bulletproof, we go much deeper into that as well. And so I'm here to help recap some of those 2 weeks that we just did in this beautiful group, and answer some questions as well. So I've got a few things I just want to show before I get into some questions, because I've also had people send me questions, which I'd like to address, if we can do that too, and then take questions live as well. So I'm going to always doing a lot of talking. So I'd start by saying, everyone, let's love strong, right? Let's love strong this year in 2022. Okay, so let's see. I'd like to, can you all see? Oh wait, I need to share a screen for you all, don't I? Let's do that, shall I? Let's do that for you. Let's see if we can share this today.
Yes.
Can you all see that?
We can see, Laura.
Is it big enough for you guys to all see?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Alrighty, so let's talk about, I'm not going to go over 43 slides today because we don't have that kind of time. But this is just part of my immune proof challenge that I do, or for my 12-day immunity challenge. And we did just some of the segments for the last 12 days, last couple of weeks here. I took some of the abbreviated sections of that, and Wendy shared them in the group, which I hope that you all had a really great time doing that. I didn't get a chance to, check in with you directly. I mean, we had a chance to go back and forth, but here's our chance to go live. So if you do have any questions while we're connected here, please do bring them forward. And before we get started, of course, I have to always let everyone know that the information in this workshop is intended for educational purposes only, and not for any diagnosis and or treatment of a health condition. Always consult a healthcare practitioner before starting any medications, any nutritional or herbal supplementation, or any therapy for that matter, for your own unique healthcare needs. So who am I? You already may know me. My background is I'm a naturopathic doctor and a Chinese medicine practitioner and Qigong practitioner. So I'm bringing both like the Eastern and Western medicines, ancient medicine and modern medicine kind of together, because I like balance after all, right? But I'm also a Canadian Red Cross practitioner, training partner, and I'm a wellness coach, mom, you know, caregiver. We're all out there helping people. My mission is to my wellness mission, my life mission too, is educate, inspire, empower people. So I'm hoping to do that today with you all and to review some of the things that we were talking about last time. Now, these may look a little familiar. If you were here for self-care, you'll also notice that a lot of the things we were talking about is also about immunity. Is that being lazy? No. Is that intentional? Yes. Is what I'd like to say. Good. I've got a nice big smile from Christine. Thanks, Christine. Because the point is, first we need to get in our, we need to really get a good foundation in our self-care. Almost everything that someone would do for self-care by loving themselves is by nature going to be good for our immune system, right? That's by nature going to be good for our immune system as well. Now, and we have to start with the basics. It's really important to start with the basics. So for example, we were talking about the breath, right? We were talking about breathing. Breathing is so important, of course, breathing. We also talked specifically about nasal breathing. Why? Because when we talk about nasal breathing, it improves the immune system by reducing like exposures to the foreign substances in our nose. And we know the mast cells are like right in our nose. We can get rid of pollens, dust, any allergens. It also humidifies and warms up the inhaled air before it goes into our chest, which is important so the cold doesn't congeal. And then we can get all kinds of other, if we live in dark, cold places or during winter time, if you live in an environment that gets very dry or very cold in wintertime, that's also important. It also increases the airflow to the arteries, veins, nerves, increases oxygen uptake and circulation, which is really important. It also slows down our breathing and it decreases our heart rate and our blood pressure. And that's of course good for immunity, right? This is all nasal breathing. It also improves our lung volume, which is important. At the time of this gathering here, we are also still in a pandemic, right? It's really focused on the lungs right now. And it also helps with the diaphragm, which is the thinnest muscle that helps us, which also helps us to breathe. It's like the thinnest, most important muscle because it helps us breathe. When it contracts, we breathe, we take a breath. So it helps in so many different kinds of ways. It also decreases coughing for us. So nasal versus bronchial. It decreases stress and anxiety. It lowers our risk of snoring and sleep apnea. And this is when the background of being a Red Cross instructor comes in. We know that with sleep apnea, it's so important to have our airway opened, proper airway, and to be breathing in through our nose and not through our mouth. So a lot of people in the evening time, whether you have sleep apnea or not, breathe in through their mouth. And when we do that, we actually decrease our oxygen to our brain. We can decrease oxygen to our brain, and that's like a serious problem, of course. So we need to get checked for that as well, if you have any problems with sleep apnea, and a lot of people these days do. So it also contributes to like the structure of our face and our teeth and our mouth and our dental problems, which we know that if those left unchecked can lead to other chronic conditions as well. So we need to be really mindful about these things. So when we're talking about basics, breathing and water and sleep and nutrition, they are so basic, but of course, each one of these things we can go into for courses or whole life studies, right? So they are really foundational. And that's why I always come back to the basics, because if you don't have your basics down, you can't advance and go deeper. It's kind of like math. It's a linear thing, right? If you can't get those basics down, it's really hard to go to the next step and do the next step. We can only go so far. So, so those are some things that are really important. Also, in terms of water, we talked about water. Water inside, water outside. Wendy just went for a beautiful swim, right? There's so much healing that involves, especially in seawater, right? Some people go to just seawater tanks just to get that experience with seawater. So water inside our body, because we're made up of more than 65% water. And we talked about that. I remember, Christine, you brought up some really good tips from last month about how important water is as well. And water around us, we want to bathe ourselves with the right kind of water. Where we get our water source from, is it based in minerals, right? That may be high in calcium and magnesium, which is really good for us as well. Are we drinking out of plastic bottles, right? Let's hope not, because those contain estrogens. Those can be endocrine disruptors and mess with our hormones. And we know that that can go down the path of cancer, right? Or any other conditions that are a problem for us for chronic conditions. And then there's, and then there's hormones, right? Hormones and neurotransmitters, right? The neurotransmitters, they execute our physiology as well. So hot water, in terms of water, we're thinking water inside, outside, hydrotherapy, etc. Right? Dr. Rashmi Churi, who's on my Brain Boss course as well, she speaks to the importance of sleep, for example. So the next step is sleep. Sleep is really important. Sleep is, like we talked about last time, even more important than food sometimes, because we can go for a very long time. We know that humans can go for a sustained period of time without food and not break down a whole bunch of different functions in the body. We go without sleep for a long time, even after 3 days of not having any sleep. They use that for a torture device. There's a reason for that, right? Because we need to take care of our body, and we have to honor those circadian rhythms. Especially in the hypothalamus part of the brain, which is the center of our sleep, right? So balance, serotonin, dopamine, GABA, melatonin, all these different things that are important around sleep. Sleep has always been important. Nutrition. Nutrition's a big one, right? Because food is such a tender subject for a lot of people, right? A lot of the time it can be, also connected with anxiety. It could be connected with addictions. It can be connected with all different kinds of things, right? So we want to be very mindful about food. Food is, nutrition is really important for us. There's lots of different types of nutritional plans. I don't like using the word diet these days, but nutritional plans that people have. And of course, it has to be unique to their own individual. But in general, I really like to advocate foods first, supplements second for everything. It's back down to basics again. And also to be mindful that when you eat a colorful plate of food, you're getting the right proportions of food. And I'm talking whole foods, right? If we're eating whole foods, we get the right proportion most of the time of proteins and carbohydrates that we need, complex carbohydrates, right? Not refined carbohydrates like sugars and refined flours and things like that. But we want to eat whole foods. Plant-based is really popular right now, and for many reasons, because it's good for the environment, because it's good for our bodies. It's good in terms of us being able to break foods down and to extract those really good minerals, vitamins, minerals, and all of those great nutrients that we really need for our body as well. So eat a rainbow of foods. It really is a great way of getting in your vitamins and minerals from all the different places in your body as well. And then movement. Just be free and move. Move your body. Move it the best, safest, most frequent way you can, while still honoring yourself and getting, and getting your routine down. There's three R's to our for our adrenal glands in terms of stress, and you might hear about like cortisol levels being up high or something like this. The 3 R's for our adrenal glands are rest, rhythm, and routine. And that also comes down to our basics. So it's really important to stay focused on your rest. Rest is really important, and that's connected with sleep. Rhythm, keeping your rhythm, whether it's your rhythm with your foods that you're eating, rotating different foods, eating seasonally, and then routine. having a really good routine set up, and shifting the routine when it's needed as well, because we know that pivoting is really important for growth and development as well. So those are 3 things just to center on. We also talked about our social connection, being in this group, for example, and being with like-minded, like-hearted, and like-driven people is really important for us as well. We have evidence showing that people who live in the blue zones across the world, or the centurions that live for many, many, many years, one of their most important thing is focused and rooted in their roots and in their community and belonging somewhere. Really important for people. And then resources, having that resource when you need it, especially if we have mental health concerns, which is a huge thing for people right now. And if we have, just starting the new year off right. I know that Wendy's doing next week, I think, right, Wendy, you're doing your vision boarding, and that what's so great about that is you also get to bring in the feng shui, which is so important because it really speaks to the balance and resonating the right energy in your space as well. And so those are the things we're talking about, reaching out and getting those resources, going to places where we can find that things that really build ourselves up and really help us connect our heart and our mind and our spirit to things that are really important so that we can go out and live our purpose. And speaking of purpose, meaning and purpose, right? Finding our meaning and our purpose and being able to live that, even with all of the difficulties that are going on in life right now. Right. And there might be lots of things for people. Again, we're in a pandemic. It's a very tumultuous time in our living, where we're living in this day and age right now. And I think more than ever, people are really searching for and finding meaning in what's really important for them on a daily basis, on a connecting with people and having that center and vision for themselves constantly, regularly and constantly. Again, rest, rhythm, routine, rhythmically, following nature rhythmically, has always been very good for our emotional, mental, and immune health, always. And then we talked also about paying it forward. We've got science behind the fact that when you pay it forward, we receive much more than we give all the time in so many different ways. And that is excellent for our immunity and also just excellent for humanity. Right. I think one of the things that I wrote about that, when we pay it forward, one of the biggest things we can do when we pay it forward is we're not even thinking of ourselves. We're giving to others. We're helping other people out. And that's also helping us, because when you help other people, you're blessing yourselves and others all at the same time. And speaking of blessing, so faith and spiritual practice, we know also that people actually have a longer lifespan and a happier, better quality of life, people who have a practice and a faith, spiritual practice, something that they can see outside of themselves, that, based in their knowing, honoring the awe of the creator or creation, right? This is something that's fundamental for people. So again, all based in for immunity. So that's our big picture recap that I just want to go over with people in case you didn't get a chance to go through all of the different things that we did in the 12-day sessions, those 12 days. So some top things for immune tips. I've had some questions come in, and I'll take some questions here live as well. Just some things I wanted to go over. I had people ask questions about respiratory congestion. What do I do for respiratory congestion? So again, that what I like to do is always foods first, supplements second. Go with your basics, get your basics grounded, because you can always rely on those. Get a huge toolbox of goodness that you can always go back to, and then build on top of that, depending on what your own unique needs are, and of course, depending on having that good solid foundation. For example, we talk a lot about the work that I do, talk a lot about detoxification, but also drainage. We can't move things through our body well if our lymphatic system is blocked up. How can our lymphatic system be blocked up? By the way, your lymphatic system is kind of the fluid highway in your body. If your bloodstream and your circulatory system is like the flow of blood, your lymphatic system is for the flow of fluids for the most part, to keep it simple. So how do we do that? We need to keep things moving and keep things flowing all the time. Again, rest, rhythm, routine. So in order to do that, we need to have our foundations down. one thing that we have that I recommend, other than, the basics like that people do, like garlic and the ginger and the green tea and the curcumin, which is curcumin turmeric, right? And things like this, is also making sure that you're mindful, of course, of your own body and your own needs. Always first is really important. Back to that self-care and that awareness, right? And make sure that we always have, that you're honoring yourself that way. If dairy doesn't work for you, then we stay away from dairy. If dairy is part of one of your staples, and ethnically, right, that's kind of in your DNA for your lineage as well, you're probably going to do better with that than someone that's not a good resonance for them. So you need to tap into your own needs in your own body first. You must know your own body first, which is good, because when you do your self-care, you get that practice. You get to practice and the awareness of that. So some people ask about respiratory congestion. What do I do? Number one, I'd stay away from dairy, even if it's just for a certain time frame. But I would definitely be staying away from dairy, which is also very good to do for your immune system in general. In Chinese medicine, for example, dairy causes phlegm, and phlegm can miss the heart and mind, and then we get brain fog and all kinds of other chronic conditions. That's an inflammatory condition and chronic conditions. So staying away from dairy, doing warming socks, which is hydrotherapy. What are warming socks, you might ask? Warming socks are, for example, if we have a cold or we have any kind of upper respiratory congestion going on, in the evening before you go to bed, what I'd like to do is take a pair of cotton socks and a pair of wool socks, or some really nice warming socks. And then what we do is we get the cotton socks really cold and wet, wring them out, put them on our feet, and put warm socks, wool socks right on top of that. Well, what are we doing? We're actually doing alternating hot and cold just directly for our feet. And so what we do is we're pressing the reset button for our homeostasis. We're pressing the reset button for our body and our conditioning, for our immune system specifically. Because if you're in a good immune response, what you should be able to do is, for example, this would be ideal if you had a fever, for example, or a lot of congestion in your upper respiratory tract, is that by the morning, those socks that were wet, not dripping wet, just like cold and wet, but wrung out, those socks should be warmed in the morning, just because of what your body's doing for the evening in terms of having that alternating warm with cold together with your own metabolism and your own immune system. So, and if they're not warm by the morning, that's going to also speak to your immunity and what's going on for you. So that's one of the things that we like to share with people about, to help them with for upper respiratory congestion, especially if you've got a fever, for example. Again, I do want to emphasize that please go and search out with your own healthcare practitioner for any of your own unique healthcare needs as well, because depending on what other people have going on, that's always something to be very mindful of. Another thing, though, for respiratory congestion, or for congestion anywhere in the body, and to help that lymphatic system so that we're constantly cleansing out and moving our fluid, so that we can move those nutrients and so that we can cleanse and move things out of the body that need to be detoxifying, is castor oil packs, for example. Castor oil packs, castor oil, traditionally people took that internally, but we know that in doing that, that can also it can also be a toxin sometimes in itself taken internally. So I'm talking about rubbing it on your body. We're talking about taking some castor oil, which can be found in most any healthcare stores these days. And you rub it literally over top of your liver, on your abdomen, where your liver would be on your right-hand side, and then put a cloth over top and then go to bed and move around, because the lymphatic system needs to constantly move. So when you're moving, going for a walk, you're moving your lymph at the same time as you're moving your blood and everything in your body. And that works really well too for congestion, done like consecutively and daily as well. Natural immune remedies also, I really love medicinal mushrooms, reishi mushrooms. Mushrooms are all the rage right now too. Of course, you must know the mushrooms. Please be very mindful of the mushrooms that you have, but shiitake, reishi, lion's mane, all these different mushrooms are really great for the immune system, really good especially for vegans too. Great source of protein as well, and sense of like being filled as well. Astragalus and ashwagandha, those are some really great herbs as well, ancient herbs that we have that are really great for the immune system and hormonal health. The number one thing I would say is please stay away from sugar and make sure that you're getting enough and proper sleep. And we talked too about sleep in the 12-day immune challenge, trying to get between that 9 to 11 o'clock at night. Of course, if you're not doing shift work, is really important because it really, that's in Chinese medicine, that's also the endocrine time. That's the time for the endocrine system. So getting to sleep at that time is really important, and too, in terms of that rhythmic help for ourselves with nature as well. So those are just some of the things that I wanted to touch base on, and then just open the floor for any questions.
We had one question, Laura, about, I'm monitoring the Facebook chat because you have a bunch of people happily watching that. So Sunshine Deb asked, how do you warm the socks?
Your body does it. So this is what I like to do. Hi, Sunshine Deb, by the way. This is what I like to do. I put the warm socks like in the dryer really quickly, just to warm them up, just for a little bit. And I take a pair of cotton socks, get them cold and wet, and wring them out. I don't want them dripping wet. I want them wrung out. Then you put the cotton socks on and the wool socks right out of the dryer, something nice and warm right over top, and off to bed you go. Now, should the socks be full length socks? No, I'm just talking about like just the feet below the ankle, like up to the ankle, below the ankle. That's all that it should be. And then what'll happen is if you've got that congestion, or if you have a fever, especially, you'll see this easily with the fever, is that by the morning, those socks should be dry. And that's what you've just done, is you've pressed the reset button, because all of your immune cells, your T helper cells that'll come to the site of an injury or whatever, when the immune system asks them to come out, what you've done is that you've trained them to come on out, and you've increased your white blood cells that'll actually help fight an infection. So that's a really great tip. And it's easy and it doesn't cost anything. And your immune system, you actually are increasing your immune system. So it's fantastic.
May I ask if, would you ever put anything in the socks if you didn't have the cold wet sock? Would you put something like the castor oil or something, medicinal in the socks as well? And if so, for what purpose?
That is an excellent question. Yes, Wendy, I would. You can put actually a few different things. For example, we talked about this also in the Immune Proof series, where you can put like some garlic at the bottom as well too. If you're talking about like an infection that you have, you could put also on kidney 1, which is kind of like if my palm is my foot, kidney 1's kind of like right in the middle of where the bottom of my foot would be. In terms of Chinese medicine, we can put lavender oil there as well if we're having some anxiety at night, things like that. So you can use essential oils, you can put garlic. I wouldn't put like anything like a rock or something, like a healing stone is what I mean by that, right? Like a healing stone particularly or something like that. The healing stones that people like to use and carry with them. I wouldn't put a stone like that, but definitely like essential oils would be a great idea. Thank you. Great question. Any other questions that I can answer?
Your thoughts, Laura, on halotherapy? Halotherapy? Salt therapy. Halo, yes.
Sorry, say it again.
Halo, H-A-L-O, halotherapy, which is salt therapy.
Yes.
For breathing and clearing out the lungs and, making sure that you have your breathing a whole lot better, especially now, given that that's one of the biggest concerns coming out of the pandemic.
It's a great question, and it's a great therapy. So we know that salts carry minerals, right? So minerals are also really important for us. In fact, we don't have enough minerals now because of our environment, our environmental situation, and also because of the pesticides and things like this. We've really stripped down our soils a lot, and that leads to our foods and for the water we drink. And we've put things in there like toxins, like pesticides and other things that are not good for us. So we have a depletion as well as we have something that we don't need in our body as well. So it is actually very important to have these things. And we know even like being by the ocean, being by the sea with the negative ions, that really affects the body in a positive way. And also salt therapies in general have been used for centuries to heal the body. We know that salts preserve things, for example, right? Yes. So using these different things with these different types of salt, and can be a variety of different types of salts, right? They use also in hydrotherapy, they'll put salts in a tub and have negative and positive interactions to bring those minerals into the body as well too. So you can do it from top down or bottom up as well, like in any way you can get in. And also it brings in, Christine, the thing about water, right? So we're bringing in minerals and salt, and we're bringing in water. And we know that water and salt have that relationship, right? That symbiotic relationship. So it is very important. And we also see that people who live near places that have more like salts in the air, because if you live near the sea or near the mountains, the Himalayan salts and things like this are very, very nourishing to the body, really, truly. Yeah. And also cleansing the body with like nasal lavage and things like this are also a really good way to clean out the body with different salts as well too. Yeah.
Yeah, because I actually sell helotherapy for spas, and so that combined with infrared sound therapy, it's like this whole package. And when initially we saw it, we said this would be great for the Caribbean, but of course it has not. Given all this happened, people haven't really tuned into this, but we know in North America it's doing very well. And I also know, based on my research, that all of this really in over the last few centuries really got growing out of Poland with the salt miners, and they're seeming, even though others were being congested with the other mines, the salt miners seem to have perfect health, great skin. And so that's when halotherapy was born within the last few centuries, around our time. But this has been used for thousands of years. So you're
thousands of
absolutely
years.
right.
Yeah,
thousands
right.
and thousands of years. Yeah.
Well, and even like Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, Eastern medicine, kinds of, homeopathy too. It's a little bit newer, being hundreds of years and not thousands of years, but they're based and they're rooted in things that are fundamental that the body needs and people need.
Absolutely.
People who fish as well, right? We know that people who fish do not have congestion, right? Because of the sea air. And we know because it's also very important, and because it's also part of our electrolytes that we need in our body as well. So it's very cleansing, very healing, and also very grounding. Salts are very grounding as well. So many different levels, mind, body, and spirit for salt.
Laura and Christine, I just wanted to stick a little comment in. What was during the last year, our beaches were closed by the government. And I was thinking, oh my God, that is so silly, because one of the things that contributes to our mental and physical well-being in the Caribbean is that beautiful, gorgeous, salty sea and the environment of it. We weren't even allowed to go on the beaches. So you couldn't even get the sea breeze, except, it blew over to your house. And only recently they've reopened them. And it's something that I am just filling myself up on it, because it's been almost a year of no salt water, right? No sea.
Oh.
But to me, that is one of the things they should have said, everybody, go to the sea.
Go in the ocean.
Go to the sea. This is going to help you in every way. And they did the opposite. They didn't do it because of the sea. They did it because when people went to the sea in our culture, they party and they didn't want the congregating.
They
took away the healing thing that we have naturally here in all of the islands, because they didn't want to do the people management thing. So anyway, that's why right now, every day that I can, I go to the sea, and we only
go in the ocean.
We only have it in the morning, so that's when I'm unavailable. I go to the sea in the morning.
But
do they only have it open in the morning for people?
It's only open just before Christmas, Laura, and it's only open in the morning. So at 12:00, we all run out of the sea. But it's so crazy, because that is one of the free gifts you have from heaven to help you stay healthy, balanced, and clear. in the, as you say, the fishermen don't get congested. So who go figure. But anyway.
No,
But
no.
I have to
So
interject.
the
I'm
air.
sorry. If I could just interject and add something there, Laura, because honestly, there has to be a balance. And I agree with you, Wendy, but when we first shut it down, we had people management. We didn't have enough resources to do the people management. We have people who just refuse to behave responsibly. And so Peter paid for Paul and Paul paid for all.
I
And
get it here, Christine, but I don't get it here.
I know you don't get it there, but can I tell you, if you don't have the infrastructure to manage people from the healthcare perspective in the hospitals, you've got the doctors, nurses who are already very challenged. You know, we've seen the uptick. I hold no brief for anyone, Laura, but we have seen if we can't get our own personal acts together,
Yeah.
we abdicate to someone else that's saying, well, you've got to do this, well, you've got to do that. And we just throw our hands up in the air and say, well, X or Y is not doing a good job. And I have a little bit of a problem with that. So I agree with you. We need the salty air. We need the ocean. But we need to do it in a very responsible way that honors not just us, but it honors everyone else.
That's why you're both right. See, the thing is, most of the time, most people are right on both ways. The most important thing we can do, and thank you, first of all, for sharing this, because this is very important. Because, right, like you said, when it contributes to your mental health, it certainly does. And we know that poor mental health is like right now worse than smoking, as they say, right? So it really is important, and we need to keep each other safe. So one of the best things we can do, therefore, is to really take care of our own immunity, you know, the best we can. Because when we are doing that for ourselves, it comes back to self-care, everyone. All my lovely friends, it comes back to self-care. When we're caring for ourselves in a loving way, not selfish, but loving ourselves with that goodness, because love is everything in the is the universe is love, right? So that's what I aspire to, like all things are all those good things. So if we're caring for ourselves with that love and kindness for ourselves, and we can't give what we don't have, then we can go out and by caring for ourselves, we can care for others too, right? In not a selfish way, but just caring for ourselves. And and salt, and back to that salt, the one good thing is that even salt in the air, people who live in cities or for, you know, townships or just islands, right, where you're surrounded by the ocean, is that the wind will move that through. And we know that wind on one side of the world, we're going to reach it. We're going to get that dust on the other side of the world at some point, right? So it's still moving through. It's not as much, but we're still getting it. So don't give up.
We only have a couple more minutes, and we have another question about salt. So some Sunshine Deb, I think, asked also if you had to choose between Himalayan salt or sea salt or normal salt, benefits.
Okay, so to get iodine, you need to have iodized salt, for example. And iodine is one of our minerals that we need in our body. We can get that by eating sea vegetables, for example, too, though, right? And we also have to be mindful about our salts, because there's, again, that delicate balance. Everything is balance, right? Balance is the most important thing when it comes to taking care of ourselves. Balance. So because of our electrolytes too, which are really connected for heart and for kidneys, for vital organs, we need to keep those always in check. A lot of people have high blood pressure, for example, because they have, elevated diets that have salt, or for example, have lots of a lot of processed food, for example. But blood pressure goes up with age anyway, because of chronic conditions and inflammation. However, when it comes to salt, look for salt. I love Himalayan salt. I use Himalayan salt myself, but I also use mountains or ocean. Different places, different sources, different minerals. It's all good. Just make sure that the source is a clean source. You can use either. You also have to look at your source with everything. Read your labels, right? Where's your information coming from? Just in life, on the internet and stuff. Know your sources so that you know if it's healthy for you or not, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in all different ways. I hope that helps.
I hope so too. So I think it's time for us to say thank you for all the questions. And you know how to reach Dr. Laura. It's on the screen if you have other questions, because she is definitely open to hearing from you. But Dr. Laura, I know you wanted to tell us a little bit about what the next steps are. So how about we take a couple minutes and do that before we wrap up?
That'd be great. We always have lots to share, and it's always nice to come together for everyone to share their questions. I love answering questions. So if you do have any, please do send them my way. I'm happy to share with you there. I also have a few things coming up. As you all may know, I have a Bulletproof 2022 that starts next week on January the 1st of 22, January 22 of 2022 on purpose. So, and that's where we go deeper, and that's a whole year series about our immune system. And yes, like I said, we could talk for days on this right now. It's some really great topics. Another thing that I have coming up the following week after that, of course, is the Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year. We're in the calendar year of our first year of January here. We also have the Lunar New Year, which is February the 1st this year. And it is a water tiger year. So I'm going to be holding a free 1-hour workshop. I'm going to be posting that on my Purpose Through Wellness page. So you'll see it there if you come to the group, to come to my page. And so you'll see the posting there to get the Zoom link so that you can join me for a free 1-hour stop where we get to celebrate and talk about some really great things through herbs and acupuncture and acupressure and qigong for the year ahead. And then of course I have my Brain Boss course that's running this year as well. It's in the building stage. I've got so many great experts on this that it's taken a really long time to build up. We're still building it up. We're just adding some more goodness and greatness all the time. And so those are just a few things. And of course I do my own one-on-one coaching and wellness and practice if you are in my neighborhood. Thank you, everyone. I just want to say thank you again, Wendy, and everyone for coming and sharing. I love your questions. And thank you just again for me being here. It's a pleasure, always a pleasure. Oh, I can't hear you.
You're muted. You're muted.
Oh, there. I said, it's been lovely to have you. Could you unmute your screen so that we could all say goodbye together? So and hopefully Terry and Keisha will take their camera, put their cameras on for the goodbye.
Fine.
Thank you so much. Come on, Terry, be brave. So Dr. Laura, could you unmute, unshare the screen, please?
Yes.
Yeah, so we can see everybody big. All right. Look at us. Look at us. Aren't we gorgeous? All right. So thank you guys for being here. Thanks for the questions. Christine, thanks for putting me straight. Dr. Laura, you were wonderful. And for those of you who watched it on Facebook Live, I thank you too. We will be checking, Dr. Laura, there'll be some questions and comments in the chat. Perhaps you will be able to answer some of them better than I could. So
I'll do that.
Many blessings and thanks again, everyone. Namaste.
Thank you. Be well, stay safe, and live with purpose.